Museum conservators today routinely detect measurable levels of arsenic within surviving dresses and preserved wallpaper samples from the Victorian era. During the 19th century, vibrant green stood as the most fashionable color throughout affluent society in England. Manufacturers achieved this favored shade through the widespread application of Scheele's green. This specific pigment consisted of copper arsenite, a documented poison. The industrial laborers who prepared the raw pigment and dyed these consumer goods died from lethal exposure to arsenic. In contrast, the individuals who purchased and wore the finished products typically experienced only mild rashes. A strict hierarchy of physical harm existed within this commercial system. The direct proximity to the manufacturing process determined the precise severity of the resulting illnesses. Carl Wilhelm Scheele synthesized copper arsenite in the calendar year of 1775. The resulting compound soon acquired the commercial name of Scheele's green. By the early 1800s, British manufacturers applied this substance across various consumer goods. The distinctive pigment-colored interior wallpaper, fabric dyes, artificial flowers, and wax candles. Commercial producers also utilized the chemical for food coloring, children's toys, and sugar confectionery. No other available pigment on the market produced an equivalent intensity of green. Manufacturers recognized this superior quality immediately. This unmatched brilliance constituted a technical reality rather than a subjective preference. Consumers eagerly embraced the vibrant hue without hesitation regarding its chemical composition. During this historical era, arsenic already possessed a respectable reputation within medical practices. Physicians regularly prescribed Fowler's solution, an arsenic-based liquid, for treating common ailments. The general public firmly believed that small doses offered legitimate benefits. Consequently, everyday exposure to arsenic carried no widespread alarm among British citizens. Unrelenting consumer demand for the vivid color drove rapid expansion within urban facilities. Inside these crowded manufacturing spaces, government inspectors documented a persistent condition. They officially recorded a green dust uniformly coating the brick walls and wooden floors. This identical powder also covered the exposed skin and natural hair of the factory laborers. The laborers steadily inhaled the airborne particles throughout their long shifts at the production benches. Inspectors recorded these physical accumulations, while the broader public considered small amounts of arsenic entirely safe. The British citizen Matilda Scheuer, aged 19, died in London during the year 1861 after persistent illness. Her death occurred following several months of occupational exposure to the arsenic pigment used within the flower industry. Physician Alfred Swain Taylor examined the specific medical case file following her admission to the infirmary. He documented a clear sequence of physiological decline over her distinct period of factory employment. Her initial symptoms included severe skin ulceration that appeared across her hands and face. This dermal irritation quickly preceded the onset of advanced nerve damage throughout her body. Her own nervous system malfunctioned, causing a loss of motor control and persistent chronic pain. The clinical condition ultimately progressed to multiple organ failure during her final days. Taylor identified the congested manufacturing environment as the primary source of the lethal poisoning. The large-scale production of artificial flowers required extensive direct handling of loose arsenic powder by workers. By the 1860s, the London industry officially employed thousands of young women across the capital city. These workers occupied unventilated rooms for 12-hour shifts in massive buildings. Fine toxic dust coated every available surface throughout the cramped workspace during production. Management provided no protective equipment for the laborers involved in the dangerous pigment application. The physical reality of the workplace necessitated constant, unavoidable contact with the volatile substance. This specific economic sector employed thousands of young women within these unventilated, arsenic-filled rooms. The clear connection between green dye and illness appeared in medical literature starting in the 1830s. This evidence predated any formal consideration of legislative action by several long decades. Formal government reports investigated the presence of arsenic in consumer goods in 1857 and again in 1871. Both documents detailed the specific health hazards inherent to the pigment used in many households. Neither report resulted in binding legislation to effectively protect the laborers or the consumers. Designer William Morris became a prominent figure in this industrial conflict during the Victorian era. His firm produced extensive quantities of green wallpaper for affluent homes across the country. Morris publicly characterized frequent health warnings about arsenic as absurd in his correspondence. He continued his firm's production of these items well into the 1870s. Manufacturers frequently argued that the arsenic remained chemically bound within the finished products they sold. They claimed this state posed no risk to the public or their clients. This corporate assertion relied on the stability of the copper arsenite compound. However, documented illness rates among their production workers directly contradicted this claim. In the factories producing these green goods, laborers continued to suffer from chronic arsenic poisoning. The decline of Scheele's green resulted from sustained pressure rather than legislation. Awareness regarding toxic pigments grew steadily across the century in England. Journalists and physicians published verified evidence linking household items to chronic poisoning. Germany implemented a formal ban on the use of arsenic in wallpaper in 1879. Great Britain never passed national legislation to restrict these hazardous practices. The industry self-regulated as commercial demand for arsenic-laden products diminished among the public. Retailers responded to negative publicity by shifting inventory towards safer pigments. This transition occurred entirely outside the framework of government intervention in the British market. William Morris remained a prominent defender of his firm's production methods for several years. His wallpaper designs occupied a dominant position within the crowded market. Eventually, mounting commercial risk and sustained scrutiny necessitated a definitive shift. In 1888, the company of Morris ceased production of all arsenic-based wallpaper patterns. This decision was driven entirely by commercial pressure rather than legal requirements or specific prohibitions. The firm transitioned to alternative formulations to retain its existing market share. Market forces effectively ended the use of Scheele's green within the industry. Napoleon Bonaparte died in 1821 while in exile on the remote island of St. Helena. His residence contained wallpaper printed with high concentrations of the Scheele's green pigment. Modern analysis of preserved hair samples from Napoleon reveals elevated levels significantly above standard ranges. Historical debates continue regarding the specific origin of this documented exposure. Many researchers analyze whether the wallpaper served as the primary source of the arsenic. Other experts point toward environmental factors or medical treatments during his final years. The causal link between the domestic environment and his physical condition remains a debated topic. Available evidence confirms the presence of the pigment without conclusively establishing the health outcome. The Victorian crisis did not produce a traceable legislative legacy in the United Kingdom. This outcome separates the case from the Radium Girls, whose legal struggles influenced labor safety statutes in the United States. No single piece of legislation exists that citizens can directly attribute to this specific historical period. Today, the chemical content of all consumer products faces rigorous oversight under established frameworks. Modern manufacturers must adhere to strict standards regarding heavy metals and toxic substances. The European Union currently governs these materials through the established REACH regulations. Today, REACH enforces the restriction of substances like arsenic in articles through Annex 17 of the regulation.